Anyway, hi, welcome to my shadow work discussions week 9. And today I'm going to talk about anger because anger is a tough one for everyone because every one of us gets angry. And in our chart, Mars is the archetype that describes assertiveness, anger, and it's the male side of us. But the principal Mars is not just a planet. It's also found in the earth as iron, and in the human body as adrenal glands, and in the psyche as the aggressive instinct, and so on. So each planet is an archetype that is symbolic of all kinds of things. It's not just a character trait. Because as above, so below, as within, so without, as I love to tell you all, because we are connected to the entire cosmos and everything in it is connected. At any rate, sometimes when we're dealing with anger, there is shadow projection going on between two people, and only one of them is willing to see their part in it. The other person might be into blaming. And so it's impossible to work through that kind of situation because there's no meeting. So doing shadow work requires that both people are willing to come to the middle of whatever their polarization is about, and requires authentic and honest communication. And here's where the communication in a long-term relationship is so essential, because we have to be willing to express all our feelings, including our angry feelings. So people who trust each other enough to be vulnerable, who are committed to their relationship, can usually work together to help each other become more in integrity with themselves. Keep in mind that the psyche is always striving for wholeness. And if we get our cues from nature, we will see that wholeness is balance. So the people who are out there who irritate us the most, who push all of our buttons, are mirrors. And especially take note of situations that keep repeating. Repetition is your shadow's way of saying to you, pay attention, this is important. You have a great opportunity here when something is repeating, because the universe is trying to support you in seeing something you're not willing to see. I'm going to read you all a story from my workbook. I wrote the Shadow Dance and the Astrological 7th House Workbook. And I want to tell a story about Randy, because it beautifully illustrates this shadow lesson that I'm trying to describe. Randy was married to a woman who was aggressive, abusive, and angry. Everything that happened was his fault, according to her. He couldn't do anything to please her. How can this be about me, he said. I'm very even-tempered and I try to be reasonable and logical. After talking with him for over an hour, it finally came out that this was his second marriage to an angry woman. And what's more, he had a partner, a business partner, that had the exact same character traits. He too, his business partner would fly off the handle and whenever he was provoked. Now, it was easy for my friend to accuse all three of these partners. Did this pattern have to offer my friend, who saw himself as cool, calm, and collected? The more he talked, the more he realized that he was angry with all of these partners, past and present, and that he could not express his anger. He could not see himself. He couldn't see it. He couldn't see that he too was an angry person, because he would shove his real feelings down into the basement of his psyche. He could only see anger in them because the opposite extreme was in his unconscious. It was building up a powerful energy. Y'all recall that whatever we identify with, the exact opposite is going to be building up in the unconscious to the same degree, because the psyche is in pairs and opposites. I explained the concept of the shadow to him, and finally, he had a brilliant thought and his eyes lit up. He said, "When I finally get angry, I explode. It is as if that part of me is all alone and has no help from the rest of me. So it comes out without the help of my logic, my kindness, my love for her, or my willingness to be fair. All these other parts of me would help that angry part of me communicate effectively if only I would let my authentic anger be a part of my daily interactions. This is the kind of aha realization you can have when you're willing to do shadow work. The awareness is enlightening. In talking through his story with me, he recognized that he indeed was angry. Projecting anger onto his wife or business partner wasn't going to get rid of it for him. They would just have to carry a larger part of the load, as they had no problem expressing anger. Dealing with anger is a very common relationship dilemma. And astrology in the birth chart shows our anger as a strong or a weak Mars function. We all have Mars somewhere in our natal chart, so it has to be expressed one way or another. Some of us are aggressive and have very strong Martian characteristics, and some of us are passive aggressive, but we all get angry. So it's an instinct. No one is born without a Mars function. The sign, house, and aspects to your Mars in your birth chart will tell you even more detail about how your particular buttons get pushed. The inner wisdom and guidance inside us knows when something is amiss. What we deny and resist persists, but it's all alone. To become a whole person, we need to embrace the parts of ourselves that are angry or needy or hurt or jealous or afraid. When we make it okay to express these parts of ourselves, we won't keep drawing partners in who have to be those parts for us so that we can see them. They wouldn't be there in your face if it wasn't a part of you. So our partners, again, are our mirrors. They show us what we have yet to see about ourselves. Because my friend was so uncomfortable expressing anger, the universe brought him first 2 marriages, then a business partner to show him what he badly needed. How to express his anger in the moment with moderation so that it was related to what he had that he was angry about and not so destructive to his relationships that he had to run away from them or explode and attack them. So this is all of us. We all get angry and we all do everything. I'm going to have a glass of water for a minute. So the emotion of anger is difficult for everyone. And that has always come up a lot in my shadow workshops that I taught. So I devoted 4 pages to anger in my workbook because it's an instinct, and it's something that we're taught from childhood that we shouldn't get angry. I mean, what do we call a woman who's angry? A bitch, right? This is how our shadow develops in the first place, by being shamed into not being who we are, not being real. And as children, we learn early on that if we want approval and acceptance, that we're going to have to stuff some of our authentic feelings, and those go into our shadow. Since we all want acceptance, right? We all want to be loved and approved of. We hide everything that is so-called negative from ourselves, from our own nature. And we grow up afraid, maybe afraid of that anger inside of us, because possibly a parent was rageful, or we see anger on the news, and we certainly don't want to end up like that. So we will stuff it until it comes out and leaks out in different ways. And I had a teacher once, and she said, anger is like vegetables. Use it while it's fresh. And I love that. I love that because if we're angry when it's fresh, then we can relate. We can be related to the other person and describe what we're angry about. And sometimes it is going to just blurt out of us if we've been stuffing it for a while. If we've been stuffing it and stuffing it and stuffing it, and then finally we've got to say something and then it blurts out. Well, a good method would be, another method would be to be honest with that person, sit them down. I mean, if that relationship is that solid, it can handle it. Any relationship that is really solid can handle anger and need and feelings and other expressions of who we are and what we're about. In order to know each other, we need to be able to express ourselves. A good friend of mine once told me that she would take her anger out on her dog. She would take her anger out on her pet. So if we don't learn to express it, it may actually be happening in what psychologists call displacement, where we're displacing our anger onto other things like her pet, or kicking at something that is in our way, when actually we're just not willing to express our real feelings. So we reject ourselves when we don't stand up for what we believe or speak our truth, and then we blame it on each other. We all do it. Yes, it makes us vulnerable to be real. But I love what Father Leo Booth said, screw nice, be real. Because if we're being real, then they know who we really are, not who we're pretending to be. And why does our society say it's okay? If we're hurt, we can say we're hurt, but if we're angry, we're not supposed to say we're angry. Well, I believe that we have to be authentic, and that means being real. Take another example. Say you're with a date and you're at a party or an event like a wedding, and you're in separate cars, or actually you're together, and that person leaves the wedding and doesn't even tell you he did that. And then you get a ride, or you get over to where the reception is, and he's sitting there, and you're like, why didn't you tell me? And if you're hurt or angry and you say nothing to that person, where did it go? The psyche is a closed system. That means it's going to be in there, regardless of whether we said anything or not, and the other person is going to feel it. If we have the courage in situations like this to go ahead and say, I felt hurt and I also felt angry when you did such and such, we'll usually find out that we can get over our angry feelings and emotions quicker. And it'll also improve authentic communication and boundaries with that person. And they're not going to do that again. If you've said that really hurt me and it really made me angry, and they do it again, then that's an instance of passive aggressive behavior. Or like Randy said, we explode. Well, that doesn't help either. What could be healthy anger and appropriate boundaries becomes rage, which is an extreme. And extremes are what get us into trouble, not our authentic feelings. We have a lot of people in prison who have become violent, and it's usually a sign that they have pushed themselves beyond their limits. Our prisons are full of these people who have committed crimes of passion, passionate emotion, because they denied their shadow until it demanded release, causing them to unleash their anger inappropriately. So we don't have to tolerate disrespect, and we don't have to always be understanding of someone else's bad behavior. Sometimes just being willing to speak to them and tell them about our hurt and our anger and our confusion will open the door to communicating what's been left unsaid by both parties. And if you aren't speaking, then how can you resolve anything? Unspoken resentment can build up, like I said, between two people, and then you could lose the relationship altogether. How many times have we not said something to another person because we didn't want to hurt their feelings? Well, whose feelings are we hurting? We're hurting our own, and it's building up inside of us. So this can happen in a really good friendship where the friendship is completely ruined because no one is communicating authentically. So go ahead. Say what you have to say so you can both work through it And it's best to be vulnerable enough to do that. The love that's between you will still be there in the end if it's really there. Most of the time, it never left. So, healing can occur on a very deep level, drawing both people even closer than they were before it happened. So, anger can clear the air, have ideas expressed, find a resolution for both people. That is, if it's an either or situation, well then say, okay, this time we'll do it your way, but the next time we're going to do it mine. And then hold your ground about that. Stand your ground that you're going to take care of yourself in the relationship. And that way you have a meeting where you're actually meeting each other halfway, and you're doing it consciously by communicating. And if we're angry and we're not willing to express our anger, it's going to follow us like a ball and chain. We will go from one relationship to another relationship to another relationship, but it's not going to just be in our relationships. It'll be all over. You'll start to see it in different places, and it'll repeat. Like I said, shadow things are perfect times for us to see whatever's repeating, it's about us. We can't go into denial. We can't decide, no, I'm not like that. Only they are like that. Well, that's projection. Projection is, again, and I'll say it again, one, we're expecting you. We see it in you. You're the only one who's like that. Two, we expect you to carry that energy for us because we're disowning it. And three, we are not being real with the other person, and we're expecting them to do what we're incapable of doing. There was another one. I can't think of it right now, but there are three different things we do with projection. What's that third one? Oh, the third one is we're inflicting it on others all over the place, and we don't even know we're doing it because it's our shadow and it's behind our back. Anything that's behind our back that's our shadow is unconscious. Remember, characteristics in the shadow are completely unconscious. We don't know about them. I'm teaching 7 ways to recognize your shadow webinar tonight. It's $20. It's an hour and a half. I hope you will consider joining me. Even if you cannot be there, you can always watch it later and invite others to watch it with you, because you will have a permanent link to this. So I'm going to read a quote by Carl Jung. The shadow personifies everything that the subject refuses to acknowledge about himself, and yet is always thrusting itself upon him, directly or indirectly. For instance, inferior traits of character and other incompatible tendencies. And that's from Carl Gustav Jung, from The Archetypes in the Collective Unconscious. What Zoom just said to me was that the internet connection is unstable. That's been happening a lot because of everybody being on Zoom. So if I go out, it'll come back on. So just hold on and I will still be here. Because periodically I'm doing a consultation and it just goes out and then it comes back in. So we can all agree on one statement. Conflict happens. We all are going to bump up against each other's humanity. It's inevitable, as no one can go around for too long being totally wonderful every single minute of the day. As the saying goes, we all wake up on the wrong side of the bed sometimes. We all make dumb or childish mistakes. These are called faux pas. If we're hurting ourselves by not knowing about our own behavior, we hope our close friends will say something to us. When we cut them off from being honest with us, we're shooting ourselves in the foot because we need them to say something to us. And of course, it greatly depends on how they say it. If they shame you or they blame you or they scream at you or they cut you out of their life, it's their shadow, trust me. That is something about them, because there's a charge. There's a huge charge. They can't even be in your presence because it's part of themselves. So those people will avoid you. That is one of the things I'm going to talk about tonight. Now, remember, the other thing is we are all energy, and like attracts like. And in that case, where two people are arguing and they both say they're right, that's called shadow boxing by Carl Jung. Um, that means that both people's egos are having the conversation and they are not able to discern that they're both doing exactly the same thing. It takes a lot of ego strength to admit it when you're shadow boxing. And many religions talk about getting rid of our egos, but Carl Jung advocates strengthening our egos first, that we can't get rid of something we do not possess. He says a strong ego is required to not flinch when you see a part of your own shadow that is being projected. And a person with no ego can be flattened by the vicissitudes of life and the complex situations that occur in all our lives. But they will not be able to deal with being honest with themselves and that are critically looking at themselves and their mistakes either. And they will not be able to apologize. They will never ever say they were wrong, or they will say, I made a mistake. I wish I hadn't have said that, or I didn't mean to do that, or I did it, but I regret it and I'm sorry. It seems so hard, but it's really essential in a relationship that we each own our stuff. Uh, and if we think going straight into spiritual awareness means that we never get angry, well, those people that are so spiritual, they're carrying a lot of negative baggage if they're not willing to look at their whole self, their shadow. And shadow, when you're doing shadow work, has nothing to do with acting it out everywhere. It means you know it. It means that you possess it, that you acknowledge it. Acting out can be childlike and not very productive, but just knowing that we're angry, that knowing the different parts of us that have gone into the shadow are essential, because then we can actually use them in a different way. I'd like to now talk about passive aggressive behavior, because I believe we are all everything. I mean, I believe everybody is passive aggressive sometimes, but there are some people who are chronically passive aggressive, and it's a distinct way of functioning. So I'm going to actually quote very extensively from a book. Okay, I'm back. I'm going to quote extensively from a book, and I'm going to give him credit because it is a very good book. And the book is called Living with a Passive Aggressive Man, Coping with the Hidden Aggression from the Bedroom to the Living Room. And his name is Scott Wetzler, a psychologist. This book is absolutely essential if I read some of these and you acknowledge maybe I'm like that, or maybe I'm married to somebody like that. And this can be a man or a woman. It has nothing to do with gender. When you're dealing with a passive aggressive person, there can be one, convoluted power games going on, obstructive tactics, lopsided logic, swinging between defiant resistance and obedient dependency. Passive aggressive people will misconstrue relationships as being struggles for power. You will think to yourself, if you're with a chronically passive aggressive person, if I let this person know what I want, they're going to make it harder for me to get it. So passive aggressive traits are dependency makes that person feel weak, incompetent, and worst of all, needy. They're experts at the cat and mouse game. You will think to yourself, they will have a cat and mouse game. They'll tell you they're going to do something and then they yank it right before they're supposed to do it. So here are the different ways that he sees this as a person who's chronically passive aggressive. Chronically passive aggressive. That person has a fear of dependency. They're unsure of their own autonomy, and they're simultaneously afraid of being alone. So they will fight their dependency needs and they will use that by trying to control you. He or she feels like they're the winner if they deny that they need your support. That's one. Two, fear of intimacy. They're guarded and often mistrustful, and they're reluctant to show their real emotions. They hold everything back. They think that if I show too much, then they're going to be able to control me. So they'll pick fights or create distance and deny their feelings, their authentic feelings, because then that might trap them. Obstructionism. Just tell a passive aggressive person what you want, and they will do it deliberately slowly. They say they will do it, but they won't get around to doing it. They may take forever to do it. They may never do it, because that is very passive aggressive. And then they'll act like they don't even remember that you asked, because they don't want for you to get your way. Procrastination. The passive aggressive person has an odd sense of time. Deadlines don't exist. They dawdle and they procrastinate way beyond someone's limits of patience. They're constantly fostering chaos. They will leave the puzzle incomplete. They will leave the job undone, the project not finished. They will take on more and more and more responsibility until they have too many responsibilities and they complete none. But if you offer a suggestion, they will resent you, and the resentment will grow. Another way is chronic lateness and forgetfulness. Did I say I would do that? I already said this one. I don't remember. Oh, I forgot to pick up the groceries you asked for. Or, oh, I forgot to stop at the cleaners. They'll say, I just forgot. But they really are not letting you get what you want. They feel victimized. The passive aggressive person will say, everyone is against them. Everybody's treating me unfairly. And they feel they're being accused rather than owning up to their misdeeds. Your needs become excessive demands to them instead of just requests. Making excuses and lying. They will fabricate an excuse for why they're not on time, why they can't be there, why they cannot keep their promises. Their word is not important to them. They will choose to make up a convoluted story rather than give you a straight answer. Ambiguity, a key behavior. They give out mixed messages, and maybe we can do this or that. If you ask them to do something, they'll go, well, maybe we can do that. But they don't tell you yes or no. You have to almost push them into saying, yes, no, what? Sulking. They feel put upon when they're asked to live up to their promises or their obligations. So they'll sulk and pout and withdraw, and deep sighs are the way that they communicate. Own up to your anger and get your grievances out in the open so they can be resolved. But many passive-aggressive people would rather sulk than raise their voice. They will or explode in rage or come clean in the relationship about what is really bothering them. Sulking for days, and you don't even know what you did to offend them because they didn't tell you. So they're masters at the direct, indirect insult. We've all heard of the Uncle Remus stories, the baby throwing punches that do nothing. They stick to the tar baby as if nothing happened. If they respond at all, it's with a rabbit punch. Off the subject, sarcastic, pointless. They'll make statements like, what have I done now? And you'll end up feeling bad. instead of them owning up what they did or didn't do, they'll say, why can't you calm down if you're upset? They feel no remorse on how they've treated you. All they can see is how you're angry. You're an angry person, and they become the innocent, wounded party. Sins of omission, the paradox of dependency or passivity, or aggression and hostility, showing themselves at the same time, comes alive with sins of omission. When a passive aggressive person refuses to give you something you've asked for that you want or need, like attention, affection, assistance, consider it a skewed BU to him or her, a real, consider it a, what is the word for it? It's like it's slippery. It's an indirect way of them showing their hostility. It means they don't have to jump to please you. So they resist you, they reject you, and you're left unsure as to why. They leave you out in the cold. Your needs go unattended, and your feelings hurt. As the saying goes, an hour late and a dollar short, or a block away. You may be counting on them, but they will disappoint you. They were going to help you move. Oh, but the truck that I have got a flat tire, so I can't be there. They'll make up lies or excuses for why they couldn't be there, but you can't pin them down because it makes you look bad when you confront them on it. When they do these things over and over and over, wow, you're dealing with a very, very passive aggressive person, and they're hiding behind a veil of innocence and good intentions. So it's difficult to hold them responsible for the problems that result from an omission. They meant to be there. They meant to help you move. Their back tends to give out. So they're sorry if you were left waiting for them. This is the kind of stuff that happens, and you feel you were mistreated. But they'll have a dozen excuses why it's not the case. And this can be maddening. This can really be maddening. If you're married to somebody like this, or you have a boyfriend like this, or a sister like this, or a brother like this, or a child like this, it can be maddening because it's difficult to deal with that they will not look at themselves. So it's a fascinating study of self-involvement because they experience their own hostility through the negative reactions of others, which they consider to be unfair criticism. Why should they be held accountable? This is a person stuck in a childish bind. So the results are evasive, confusion, prolonging bad feelings, counterproductive behavior, and great dissatisfaction within a relationship. Those are the different ways that you can see somebody who is chronically passive aggressive. So how do we resolve this dilemma? That person needs to find out that dependency is natural. It is not weak. It's called interdependence. It's healthy. That is how trust is built. Keeping our word to each other, resolving issues, apologizing, and meaning it. 3 C's for healthy. The 3 C's for healthy relating are cooperation, communication, collaboration, and I'll add another one, commitment. So cooperation is not seen as a submission. No one is in control. If someone is in control, you are in a mom and dad relationship, not partners. Encourage them to feel a sense of power, that they have choice, and show them they have a choice and they have other options. When they do say no, and they don't want to do something, thank them. Thank them for being honest. Remember, they have to be able to make a choice to feel empowered. Needing others does not mean that they are beholden or that you're being controlled by them. Criticism should be limited to specific behaviors, not the whole person. This hurts. That offends me. When you did this, I felt that. This often, they often mistake criticism for domination, even if it's friendly or helpful. You're trying to dominate me, is what they will say. So, confrontation leads to the insights of our behavior, all of us. And feelings have to be shared. We all have feelings, deep feelings, easily hurt even. And if we don't show it overtly, that anger will just go inside us. And anger is necessary because we're going to all run into each other's humanity at times. Be willing to be vulnerable. Be willing, because the more dependent we are on each other, the more we get to be real, the more we actually have what we want, which is intimacy. If you're fighting intimacy, then you have to, if that person is fighting that, they're fighting expressing the good and the bad. We have to express the good and the bad. So our free expression is actually a testament to the strength of the relationship. When we withhold our anger, we don't feel close to the other person. They are an acquaintance at best, and if we are afraid to show anger because of the way they're gonna how they respond when you get angry with them, eventually the relationship will just deteriorate and you will have to go your separate ways. And even if you say, I held back because I was afraid of how you were going to respond, and look, this is how you respond. I know I did wrong by doing what I did, hiding something from you behind your back, but I was afraid to share and be real with you. So that person really isn't your friend, and you're really not really close to that person. There is no closeness if you can't be authentic, if you can't share the good and the bad. So we have to acknowledge what we feel and also call attention to the problem, whatever the problem is, as tactfully as possible. I'm angry because you did this, or you didn't do this. Our relationships will improve when we all develop the skills to say what we're really feeling in the moment. John Gregg has a book called What You Feel You Can Heal. Well, it's really a good book. And we have to use I statements. I felt this when you did that. And the tone you use is all important. And if they share something that they felt with you and you go ballistic on them, again, you're not meeting each other. You have to meet. You have to listen to the other person. And when you listen and you are showing them that you really care. So we can't make that kind of statements like, oh, never mind, it's no use talking to you. That's like a rabbit punch. So we need to listen without commenting. And then we need to take turns. Like, I'll listen to you, and then I want you to listen to me. And then we will dialogue about how we're going to resolve this. So that acknowledges that you heard them, and they will know you actually care about their feelings and you care about the relationships. Like I talked in my last one about the ball. You throw the ball, they catch it. You throw the ball back. If you're not in that game, if you're not in that kind of reciprocal relationship with another person, you're not really in a relationship. I mean, you might think you are, but you're not. You're actually involved with that person's mother and father, and they're involved with your mother and father. There's like 6 people involved, not 2 adults. And then watch out for red flags. Watch out for red flags when they're getting really quiet and they don't talk to you, and they're harsh, or they start picking a fight with you. We're all intuitive to a degree, and we can tell when something is wrong. We can tell. So our better judgment will tell us when they're being hostile by picking a fight, and that there's something wrong. And so we need to ask, what is going on that's really going on with you? I care about you, I love you, and I want to know. And if you cannot express it, would you please write it down? I love you, and I want to know what's bothering you. How can I change anything if I don't know? So we both agree, if we're in a really good relationship, then we're going to agree that no matter what comes up, we're going to process it. We're going to process it until it's over. And then all the negative feelings are gone. So it is really worth it for the temporary discomfort that it might cause to express our anger. But again, if we want close, intimate partnerships, we have to do shadow work with that person. We have to be with people who love us enough that they have history with us and we trust them. We know they have our back and they have our best interest at heart. You know, when we know they're dependable and we can count on their word, when somebody says, I will be there at 7, they will be there at 7. And if they're running late, they text you or call you, I am running late. So you can do something else while you're waiting for them. But to walk in after they've sat there keeping you waiting for 2 hours and then you're angry and they go, why are you so bent out of shape? I'm here now, aren't I? I had this one guy that I could not figure out until I finally saw that he was passive aggressive, which is why I bought that book and I read it. And I read it and it was like, oh my God, this man is on every page. And this was his behavior. He was afraid. He was afraid of his dependency needs. He was afraid of his autonomy. And he was afraid of being controlled. And so this is going to go all the way back to childhood. And you're going to see that like a moon-Pluto opposition. Often you're going to see in the chart that there's an opposition between the moon, our emotions and our feelings, and the planet Pluto, which is about control and power struggle. You'll also see Sun square Pluto. There's several different ways you can actually see this in the birth chart, but Pluto's going to be involved. Okay, so the other thing is to take turns listening to them and trying to avoid knee-jerk reactions. And differences, when you have differences with that person, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're attacking them. It's just that you have a difference of opinion or a different way to look at things. And you can't expect everybody to be exactly like you. We're not. We're all different. This is what I love. I love about astrology. If you order one of these psychological horoscope analysis reports by Liz Green that are on my website and you read it out loud to each other, you're not going to change that person. They are who they came here to be. You will understand each other so much better if you understand each other's astrology. And again, if you have a fight, you both agree that you're going to process it, that you're going to get through it. You're not going to bed like that. You're going to help each other understand where each other was really coming from. So we have to become aware of these things in order to not project our shadow onto other people. We have to become aware of the things in us that we're not aware of. And that's why I teach my workshop and I continue to teach it. I've been teaching it since 1990. I still am doing the work. I still have situations appear before me that I have to look at, that I'm not willing to see. And I'm going to say something really that is very vulnerable right now. I'm going to share something about myself. There was something I was refusing to see. Seriously, there was something I was refusing to see. I blinded myself. The doctor made a mistake, but he was just part of the process of me taking back that part of me and understanding that what I was projecting, and this had to do with a madly in love thing, that I was projecting onto this person. So don't blind yourself. Take a look at your shadow, because before you can ever get to the male and female, which is the anima and the animus, the male and female contrasexual images that are within us, before you can even get to that, you have to go through the shadow first. So anyway, thanks again for joining me. I'm going to look to see if anybody's here or if anybody has any questions. And I, again, invite you to come tonight to hear me on Zoom. On my website, shadowdance.com, up at the top, it'll say 7 ways to recognize your shadow, and there's a graphic. Click on that, and it'll take you to my scheduled events. And I am working on a webinar that will be available later that people can take together. to do this work. Or again, you can order my book. My book is a workshop, the Shadow Dance and the Astrological 7th House Workbook. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to look. Hello, Patricia. Sarah, I have Libra in my 8th, and I was almost married to a guy who was emotionally manipulative. I had never noticed because it never seemed noticeable before, or else I wouldn't have been in the relationship because I crave balance. However, I don't hold any ill will. I don't understand. I don't hold any ill will. That's great. When we get to the place where we can be thankful for that person brought us a gift. There was an absolute gift in every person that comes into our life that pushes our buttons. What house shows procrastination? I don't know that it's the house that would show procrastination as much as it would be the planets, but the 7th house is the house of the opposite. It's the house of the other. So whatever we're projecting onto that person could be in that house. Venus, Venus wants to be, the planet Venus is the part of us that wants to relate. It's the part of us that wants to connect and feel connected to the other person. It's where we want to, what we value and where we want to feel valued. So that is our Venus and our Mars have to be in balance, just like our 1st and our 7th houses. They have to be in balance. So I hope that answered something. Let's see. Pluto involvements in the issue. Yes, I definitely. Thank you, Rebecca. Please say more about Pluto. Pluto is a subject entirely on its own. And I could literally have an entire month to talk about Pluto. It's very complex. But suffice to say that wherever our Pluto is, power struggles are going to be evoked. And if we happen to be a person who has a Venus-Pluto square, or Pluto in the 7th house, or the ruler in the 7th house is Pluto, the ruler of our 7th house, then we are going to have to deal with power struggles. We're going to. And we have to learn how to be honest, to be authentic, to be in integrity. That's what Pluto wants. Pluto wants us to be in integrity with ourselves. And being in integrity with ourselves actually empowers both people. There's an article on my website, shadowdance.com, and it's called Understanding Repetitive Patterns in Relationships. That was the very first article I ever wrote on the shadow. It's on my website, and y'all can read it. So thank you. 6 comments. There's more. Let's see. I don't see any more. I don't see any more questions or comments. So I would like to really thank you all for coming. And next week, I will pick another topic. I'll announce it prior to the week. And if you haven't already, please join my group, Shadow Dancing and Your Relationships. I have 2 pages, one for the book, one for my astrology work, and then one for my group, which is Shadow Dancing and Your Relationships. Facebook did not like that I was posting quotes by Carl Jung and then my website underneath. I mean, that's all I can imagine, but they have banned me from advertising on Facebook and would not ever respond. Talk about passive aggressive. They never would respond to tell me what I did wrong so that I would stop doing it. They just banned me from sharing or buying advertising. So I just share all over, and I share when I'm going to do something. But they haven't completely X'd me out of Facebook yet. But when they do, and if they do, I will just create a YouTube channel. And I do have a YouTube channel. So if there are all of the talks that I give here, I actually post them on YouTube as well. And my YouTube channel is just my name, Rebeca Eigen, astrologer for the 7th house. Yes, Mercury opposite Pluto. Oh my God, Uranus in the seventh house. I have Uranus in the seventh, Uranus ruling the seventh house. Uranus in the seventh house is a lot about unpredictability. Unpredictability, uh, totally independent, very independent, won't beat to anybody's drum but their own. When you have to share those, literally when you have to share that with another person, you have to both take responsibility for what's in the seventh house. I'm going to talk a lot about that tonight in my 7 ways. 7 ways to see your shadow, recognizing that the seventh way is the seventh house. You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. And I look forward to tonight, and I also look forward to next Friday. I'm late to the party, but I have Mercury and Jupiter in Aries. Mercury and Jupiter in Aries conjunct in the seventh. Just learned that Joseph Campbell has that conjunct, but don't know the house. So you're a philosopher. You're a very strong philosopher, and you're attracted to people you can learn from and who are wise, teachers, gurus. And eventually you also have to recognize the wise teacher in yourself and the guru in yourself, Guru. And also the negative traits of Jupiter: overextending, overdoing, overcommitting, excess. That's Jupiter. So that has to be acknowledged. You have to acknowledge that no, it isn't just him that's like that. Or if he's doing it or she's doing it, they're going to be doing it to an extreme until you sit down and do what I call shadow work together. I, two of my friends have a stellium in the seventh. Yes, stelliums in the seventh are really interesting because every single planet in that stellium is going to be mirrored from the outer world to our relationships. Our relationships are going to have all of those. It's really, really interesting to see that. What's very hard is when we have the malefics in the seventh, and unless we have conscious awareness of how we're living those out, those can be very hard. Sarah, I have Leo in my seventh with Jupiter and Venus ruled by Virgo. Yep, Jupiter and Venus ruled by Virgo. Um, so, again, Leo in the seventh is somebody who is bigger than life, very entertaining, somebody that you admire, that, they're like the king or queen, they're very regal, they're very out there. And that's your light. That's your creativity that you're seeing in the seventh house on the other person. So it's taking it back and also sharing it. I think that when we're sharing it with another person, it can actually be really fun. Whatever's in our seventh, because we're destined. Whatever's in our seventh, we're destined to live it with someone else. And any kind of oppositions to Venus, they're going to be as if they're in the seventh. So, and then again, looking at everything, the house, the sign, the ruler, the inner aspects between the ruler. So astrology can be complex. So my seventh is empty. Well, it doesn't mean it's empty. It means that the ruler of your seventh is the ruler, and then the aspects that house is making, that is going to tell you about your relationship requirements. And, again, trust the unconscious. Our unconscious is going to bring us the perfect person. Our unconscious will bring us the perfect person over and over and over. I love this quote by Edna St. Vincent Millay. She says, life is not one damn thing after another. It's the same damn thing over and over. Okay, well, I'm going to let y'all go. I have a consultation actually in 15 minutes, so I need to go prepare. But I thank you for coming, and I look forward to next Friday, and I hope you'll join me tonight. Once again, the webinar is for the Houston Astrological Society. It's called 7 Ways to Recognize Our Shadow. It's $20, and it'll be an hour and a half. It'll be videoed, and even if you cannot attend tonight at 7, you will get the link, and you are free to share that with anyone that you want to share it with afterwards. I want this information to get out there. That's my goal in life, and so that is my commitment to you all. Thank you.